All right, folks, I want to welcome my guests to the show. It's Josh, Tyler, and Denny from the Kentucky X-Files. Welcome to the show, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having us.
Oh
Yeah, I've been excited to talk to you. I'm glad you reached out. So let's get into the story. What got you into cryptids? You guys go one at a time and tell me, was it the experiences or is just general interest as a child? But what sent you on this path you've been on for a while?
You got to start this off. Yeah.
It didn't start as a cryptid thing. I didn't learn that it was a cryptid until later. So roughly 20 years ago, this is a tale. I hope you're ready for it. Okay, so I was working with this guy, and he was new. We were doing like recycling wooden pallets and cardboard and all that junk, and we're working in this big warehouse by ourselves. And out of nowhere, he's like, "Hey, man, you believe in demons?" Out of nowhere. I mean, it's left field. So you can imagine my response to that. I'm like, "Wow, man, I've never seen one, so I don't know. I don't know what to say to that." And he's like, "Well, I've seen one." So he starts to tell me this tale where down in Kentucky, probably a good 30 minutes south of us, he's on this old back road. It's a gravel road. It's like a state road that's still gravel. And they found this spot to go camping by this creek, and it was him and his brother and this couple of girls or whatever, and they started hearing these crazy screams coming out of the woods, and they were shining lights up there, and they could see eye shine looking at them, and the eye shine kept changing positions, and they could actually hear the movement of it, like running back and forth and screaming at them again and changing positions and all that. And eventually they got terrified because he goes, "Man, it sounds like a woman being murdered." And at the time, this is 20 years ago, this is before all the podcasts and all the shows and all this stuff. That comment stuck out to me. It sounds like a woman being murdered. And I'm like, God, that's a terrifying prospect, And even just right then when he told me that, I'm like, oh yeah, that would creep me right out or whatever. And he starts telling me that finally the girls weren't having it anymore. They're like, we got to go. We're leaving. They pile into this old, Bronco or whatever it was, like old Blazer or Bronco, and they peel out of there. Well, this thing is keeping pace with them, and they can see the eyes following, and they're hauling ass up this road, right? Pardon my language. And he says that he gets all the way home, good 15-minute trip back to his mom's house. And they all pile up, go upstairs, and they're all freaking out. And they're looking out their window, and they can see the eye shine at the edge of the yard in the woods. Like it had followed them all the way there. And I'm at this point in the story, I'm kind of like, all right, you're crazy as hell, man. Come on, give me a break. And he starts telling me like, hey, look, this thing's still following me. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't go out at night anymore, man, ever. I'm like, okay, that's got to be kind of challenging. I mean, he stuck by the story, and I was like, okay, well, I tell a buddy of mine about it, and I'm like, you got to come up and hear this guy's story. He's crazy as hell. This dude's crazy. Like, you're gonna laugh when you hear this. It's a good story. Like you'll laugh. We invite the guy over to my parents' house at the time, and we're sitting out front having a few drinks, just enjoying the evening. I invite him to tell the whole tale to a buddy of mine. He spills out the whole thing. We're sitting there, it's starting to get into evening. It starts getting dark, and I'm ashamed of this, but I was actually kind of trying to keep him sucked in because it was starting to get dark, and I'm like, let's see. Well, true to form, man, out of nowhere, he just leans up real quick, and he's like, I have to go. He's like, it's here. And I'm sitting there like, I got this like smile on my face, like, okay, it's here. he literally left his stuff and just ran down to his car and just jumped in his car and just took off. And we're sitting there like, wow, man, like that really sold the story. Like that was good, you know, like, man, that was a good little effect he just did to just seal it, you know, to freak us out. And we're sitting there, you know, and a couple minutes go by and we're just kind of laughing like, yeah, he's crazier than hell. That scream came from less than, I'd say, 25 feet away from us. My parents had these like kind of a dog kennel set up next to their house where they had a few dogs in there, and my mom had some cats and things like that. Right on the other side of that is where the scream came from. And when it hit us, we live on a farm. Every single animal was dead silent. It knocked, like, that whole joking, hilarious, everything about this is funny was turned off just like that. At the time, my buddy that was still there with me, he had a leg in a cast, and I actually grabbed him and I yanked him up and we went in the house dragging our cooler with us. He was freaked out. I was freaked out, and we sat there and listened to the like limbs and stuff breaking, whatever it was. And to this day, I've maintained we didn't see anything, but we heard something there. And it was enough that it freaked us both out big time. And it wouldn't be, you know, I mean, it wouldn't be 2 decades later, I guess, when I heard the scream again on a website, YouTube channel, Thinker Thunker. I was talking to Tyler about it, and I told him the story, you know, and what had happened, and I started getting on there and typing in, you know, like crazy screams, you know, and all this. And again, I wasn't looking for Bigfoots, man, or Dogman or anything. I just wanted to know what was that, what makes that sound. And I landed on Thinker Thunker, and I pressed play and I'm listening and I'm like, oh my God, there it is. And it made all the hair stand on the back of my neck again. You know, just like it did that night. It was like, it just brought it all back. And I reached out to that friend who was with me that night, and I asked him, like, hey, do you remember that? You know, do you remember that sound? And he just straight will not talk to me about it. Or I'm like, I'm curious. I want to know. I want to know more about it. I want to experience. I want to talk to people who have heard that scream. You know, nope, he's done. He's out. You know, which kind of gave me you know, another level of confirmation that what we heard that night was something that we'd never heard before or experienced. You know, it's odd for a farm to go quiet. If anybody lives on a farm, you know, you kind of get used to the constant noise. You know, and to hear something just pierce through all that, where no dogs, no cats, we had ducks. I mean, ducks are noisy, and not a single duck would make a sound, you know, no chickens, no nothing, you know. How still everything was what really left an impression on me. So that's kind of how I got interested. I wanted to talk to other people and hear if they heard something like that, or you know how it is. I mean, you want to know you're not crazy, you know. And we've talked to a few that have heard it, you know, and that have experienced things like it. And every time we talk to them, and you can hear the relief in their voice telling it, you know. And I'm like, man, I know what that feels like, you know. And you're like, I don't know, you know, you're gonna think I'm crazy, you know. But they start telling it, and it's a good feeling to let them have a, you know, someone who feels the same, you know, someone who can connect with them about it. So yeah, I always try to reiterate though, I didn't see a Bigfoot. I didn't see a Dogman. I'm probably lucky that I didn't, but I definitely heard something that got me real interested, you know.
Before we move on to Josh and Tyler's stories, let's talk a little bit about what you heard, because I wasn't even really familiar with Thinker Thunker until just a couple of months ago when somebody reached out and said, one of your shows is on Thinker Thunker and he's breaking it down with Les Stroud. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. But I've heard people talk about sounds on his show. What was the sound that you heard? Was it like an Ohio howl type sound? Can you describe it for me in the audience, what it is that you heard?
Okay. This is the most difficult part to describe because if you take an animal out there, like, say it's like a screech owl, most people have heard screech owls, it'll mess with you if you hear one, especially if you're out in the woods by yourself and hear one.
You don't know what it is
before. Yeah.
Or you've never heard it. So there's the higher pitched part that sounds like a woman screaming. And then there's this low that accompanies it. And I cannot figure a better way. And even being a musician, I cannot think of a better way to describe it as, unless you went to say a keyboard and you used octaves. Say your high A was the scream and your low A was whatever that is that's with it. It's a crazy high pitch with this low end that kind of kicks out with it. And it's absolutely terrifying. Like, I never want to hear it again unless it's safe on the internet where I can see a video of somebody playing it for me. If I'm being honest,
So yeah, I've heard things here on my property in North Carolina that I can't explain. I've talked about it on the show many times. I'm not going to bore people with it, but I've said before, when you hear something that is just not right, because I've heard just about anything there is in the woods between Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and North Carolina. I've heard it. And what I've heard here on the property is none of those things. Yeah. So when you hear that, it sticks out. And of course, it's in your brain. And I think one of two things happens. You either go into research mode and you want to find those answers, or you just shut down and say, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think either one of those things tends to sort of lend credence to what happens when somebody has an experience. Because if somebody shuts down like that and they don't want to talk about it and there's real fear in their eyes, you kind of know that something's up. Yeah. And I think the opposite is true. When people devote as much time as some people devote to this subject, you're either crazy or you're really trying to find some answers, because there's really no in between when it comes to this stuff. Either you believe in it and you're trying to prove it to yourself or whatever the case may be, but you just don't bullshit your way through this is what I'm trying to say. It's either one or the other. Right. Tyler, what about you? Was it his experience that got you interested in this stuff? Have you had your own experiences?
I haven't, I want to say, I actually feel like I discovered my.
Tell the bear, dude.
Yeah.
Tell it.
I can say that we were talking about experiences and stuff on our show. This, I think we were a couple episodes in by now. And I was telling him one time, it was 10 years. I think I was 10 years old, maybe 12. And I remember going into the back, I lived in a subdivision, and then there was a lot of farmland and just rural land, just woods that as kids we ride our bikes back there all the time. And one day I went there back there by myself, and I was going over these little ramps that everybody's made. And the next, I go over this one hump. I didn't see it at first, but then I kind of, it raised up the ground. And as I was climbing up this little hillside, I see this, I think it was a bear. I 100% believe it's a bear, but we do not have any type of black bears in this area. But what stood out the most to me was, it would look like it was looking for something. It was just moving its head around, looking down the ground, like it was sniffing for something, but it never took the interest in me. And I just remember going back home, and it's to this day, I still believe it's a bear. And I even told my friends and my parents, and they are there's no such, you saw a dog or something like that. And I was it did not look like a dog. It was too big to be a dog, unless this dog was super fat. I'm just saying you can tell when you look at a bear the shape of its head, like the way that snout comes down, like it to me looked so much like a bear. And then he starts telling me, it's like, hey man, like a lot of people's Dogman sightings, they say it looks like a bear before it like gets up. And I'm like, please don't say that, because this is like right behind, like it was right behind my parents' house. And I was like,
There for a minute, every time he would talk about it, I'm like, yeah, well, that wasn't a bear, man. I'm sorry.
yeah, that was.
He's like, it's a bear for sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's really not though.
Keep telling yourself that, Tyler.
So I guess like, yeah, like I've always been interested in these like paranormal and cryptids and like unexplained stuff, because there's some answers out there that like I just don't think that people are too scared to talk about and just try to get it out and we understand it. So I guess I feel like that's the reason why he started to talk about his experience. And we were like, man, like he was really wanting to figure out and see if anybody else had this. So that's why we kind of me and him started it and came together, and we just started to talk about it, talk about these things, and see if we can get other people to talk to us to just understand what are they seeing. And I guess that's how, like, yeah, and Josh came in, like he was a guest a bunch of times, and then he came in because yeah, like it was like a good, like a fit. We couldn't say that he wasn't part of the show anymore.
It was silly to call him a guest. We're
Yeah.
like, like, hey man, you might as well just stay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
So, Josh, what got you into it, man? Did you have experiences of your own?
Man, it's back when I was a teenager. I remember being on the farm, and the farm I grew up on was about 100 acres or better, and there was at least 40 acres of clear hayfield where you could go out and see the night sky. I was also in a flight path. I was obsessed with planes and stuff growing up, so I used to watch like the old World War II planes flying through to go to air shows. But I remember being out there at night with a few buddies and seeing the strange lights in the skies that don't make sense, that don't follow flight patterns, that aren't the right colors. That I'd say is probably the beginning of it for me. I've never seen a Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Dogman or any of those type of things. I've had weird paranormal stuff happen to me over time. The shadow people, the man in a hat, the thing in the corner of your eye, you turn and it's gone. Laying in bed and wake up and there's somebody in the room and then they're not anymore kind of things. That's more along the lines of what I've had experience with. And then after I joined the show, I had a terrifying experience one morning walking the dog before work. I got growled at. And I mean, I live in the country still, been around dogs my entire life. There's at least 3 packs of coyotes here. It wasn't a coyote. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't a big cat. We tried to pull the security camera footage from my house, but it's so dark you couldn't see anything. But what was interesting is we did find infrasound in the audio from it.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm the more skeptic, I guess, out of the 3 of us. I don't even believe my own stories. Like I experienced it and I go, man, I've got to be crazy. There's no way I saw that. There's no way I heard that, So for me, it's the folklore, it's the stories. I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies. I love creepy videos on the internet, so hearing people tell me their stories, I'm all for it. I just love hearing it.
Well, we'll certainly talk a little bit about the show, but I want to talk we've talked about Dogman a couple of times, and I literally just got off an interview with a guy that lasted almost 2 hours, and he's a UFO experiencer. And this guy has so many stories. I was just blown away at how many times he says he's been abducted by aliens. He's got an implant in his hand, and he's written several books. And this guy's a Vietnam veteran. I mean, he served his country and was in Vietnam. One of his second book is actually about his service in Vietnam and some of the things that he experienced there. And I'm listening to his stories, and he is so genuine. But I'll be honest, I have a hard time with some of the things that he said, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like the shows I put out recently over the last couple of weeks, the 50 years in Bigfoot, the Janice Carter story from Tennessee. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not.
Probably.
Janice had so many different way out there kind of things. Like she had these clan of Bigfoot on her property. They speak 20 languages. She
Yeah.
knows their
Yeah.
language, and I've had people texting me and I've had listeners writing me and saying, God, what about that Janice Carter lady? And I'm like, I don't know. The jury's still out for me. I've got some opinions that I'm going to share on the show here in the next couple of weeks. But the end of every single one of those correspondence, whether it was somebody texting me or somebody sending me an email, was, yeah, but what if she's right? What if she's not full of shit? And I'm like, well, that's a possibility, right?
Right.
She could be telling the truth and everything she says could be real.
Hey, everybody thought Bob Lazar was full of crap. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in that camp for a long time until I saw the documentary that came out recently, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure that guy's not telling the truth.
Right.
I'd love to have him on the show. I've been trying to get him, but he's literally in the middle of nowhere, and he's a hard road to hoe to get on a show. But I'm trying to pull some strings. I know some people, so maybe we'll have a Bob Lazar show one of these days.
That'd be awesome.
But I want to talk a little bit about like Dogman, for example, right?
Okay.
I've had some conversations with people recently. It came up during the Janice Carter thing. She talked about Dogman and knowing the difference in Dogman hair versus Bigfoot hair and blah, blah, blah. I tell you, I've always had a hard time with Dogman.
Yeah.
But I've talked to some really credible people,
Yeah.
right? And I guess it's my cop brain that just doesn't allow me to check any boxes on Dogman because I don't know how it could physically exist in the world.
Thank you. Yes.
But there are so many credible people who say they have encounters. I guess my question is this. Have you guys talked to people on your show that have had Dogman encounters? And where are you at on the whole Dogman phenomenon?
I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, being the skeptic I am, but it's when you look at it in a rationale, the Dogman MO does not match the stories. So that's, I've always thought it was just a spinoff of a werewolf story, so I cannot force myself to think Dogman's real because it doesn't make sense evolutionary or the stories versus the folklore, So
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
I've always thought, I think we've said this on our show before, is that I think it might be a misinterpretation. Maybe it's a sighting of a Sasquatch. I know people said that there's different types of Sasquatch out there. Like one of them could probably have the characteristics of it, of a dog, because they always say it looks more like not like a wolf, but like a German Shepherd style head. And they say it's ripped, like really.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, but
you know where I'm going with this.
I think we've had a couple people we've had one guy on our show. He said that he found a den.
Oh, he had a family on his farm.
Yeah, I know it was the investigator dude.
His face was what I was thinking when we heard that. Yeah.
And he said he found a den that I guess there was baby Dogman.
Oh, it was before me. I was thinking the guy that had the ones that there was like a white one and a gray one.
Oh yeah, but I was just saying is that he said he had pictures, but he wouldn't show them.
Right.
Because he was afraid that people would know where the location was, and he didn't want to.
He was afraid that somebody could identify the leaf on a plant in the background of the photograph and use that to geographically locate where he was.
And so with that, I get a little those types of people talking to us. I get into the realm. I'm like, I can't believe your story because it seems like you're trying. You're deliberately moving around to make just to have a story. You're not giving us true facts. You're tiptoeing around. So, and that's what's hard. Like if somebody actually is out there that's had an experience with one of these creatures, I wish they would come forward, because the people that are coming forward, I don't believe that they've actually had an encounter. My bad. Tongue-tied. But go ahead. I know you're waiting.
Chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, I'm about to probably bury our little show before it ever becomes anything. So, aberrant kangaroos. All right, got a lot of hate for this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It's about the size of a man. Looks like a dog. It's ripped, big black claws, and it smirks at people.
And red eye shine.
So,
Look up how many kangaroos are in the United States. People buy them. They don't want to take care of them. They turn them loose. Happens all the time. There's more tigers in Ohio than there are in the wild. I put this out there and got a comment. It's like my favorite. I'm going to get a tattoo of this.
Oh, yeah. That's the best.
My favorite comment of all time was someone from some
Well, back up and say
pro Dogman channel.
it was a video that you and I dissected.
We dissected a video and basically lined up the movement of the leg in the video with a kangaroo, and it matched.
Yeah.
Someone comes up to us or puts a comment that says, kangaroos loose in the United States. Are you kidding me?
That was the line.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's where you draw your line in the sand? It's not man-sized dogs or werewolves. It's kangaroos. Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. Whatever you want. The problem is exactly what he said. The stories I get told are not matching up the pictures I'm seeing. Now, hey, love it or hate it, Bigfoot's got a lot of good footage and a lot of good pictures out there. Whether you want to lean either way, you can lean relic hominid, you could lean Gigantopithecus. I've heard that one till I was blue in the face.
Meganthropus.
If you want to go, the Dogman is a type of Sasquatch, go Dinopithecus. That's a man-sized baboon that lived back when the Gigantopithecus did. Whatever you want to do there. It's got better publicity, a lot more evidence to support it. Also, nature has a blueprint for it. Gigantopithecus was an actual creature. A lot of this stuff, nature designed it, built it once. Nature knows better than we do. Dogman. Nature did. I don't see where nature would have ever needed to build one. Unless we're going the supernatural route and saying, hey, it's a skinwalker, shapeshifter, whatever you want to say. I don't know.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up is I think maybe, and this is sort of the conclusion I've drawn on the show, because I've had paranormal experiences that I can't explain and things that I've heard and seen that just don't make sense in our physical realm. So I believe that there are things that are paranormal and supernatural and maybe even interdimensional. And that's the only thing that makes any sense to me, that if these people, and I want to make light of everybody who's had a Dogman sighting, but if you've had one of those sightings and it's not a misidentification and you are being genuine with what you're saying as far as what happened in your encounter, there's got to be something to it. And that's the only thing that I've ever been able to make any sense of it, is that it's got to be something either demonic or supernatural.
Yeah.
Physical flesh and blood creature. But yet, you hear stories about people shooting them and they bleed and, all of these things. But at the end of the day, for me, Dogman just doesn't fit in a physical box. It's more of a supernatural or something maybe even interdimensional. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned the evidence. Let's talk about evidence and this phenomenon that I have seen over the last, year plus of doing the show, of people. I don't know if you're having people send you evidence and send you pictures and videos and saying, hey, there's a Bigfoot.
A big red
hey,
circle.
there's a Dogman.
Yeah.
And it's nothing but leaves and pine needles.
Yeah.
Right?
We have a running joke on the show that's all you need to carry on you is a camera. If you're, you get into a Dogman encounter, just pull your camera out. He'll turn into a bush and you're good. Just walk away backwards while you're holding the camera at him. You'll be fine.
Well, I think it was your most recent episode I was listening to. I heard Tyler say something and he dipped his toe into the water. So I'm going to push you over the edge, Tyler. because I've talked about this on the show before. I've gotten to the point where I've questioned myself and saying, okay, is it possible? Let's just throw it out there for theory, right? Is it possible that people are seeing these things because they're meant to see them and I'm not? Is that possible? Or are they just all crazy?
Well,
don't all answer at once.
I personally, I was good. Like when I think I said that when I like, cause that was like how our guest was like saying that I guess we can't see, like, cause I think I know what the episode you're talking about. He could see through the veil, and I don't want to say it. Like, I'm not saying that he can't or not. Like, I know there's some things that can't be explained. I know there's things like experience that Denny has went through that's very supernatural where it really can't be explained. But so there's probably a thing where I want to go with Denny's route on that. He said, I don't believe, like, because you say that when the ships first came to America.
That was the guest that said that.
Yeah, but they were going back and forth. Like, the ships came to America, but the chiefs are like the medicine man or whatever are the only ones that could comprehend the ships, but the other people couldn't because they've never seen a ship before. It's like they
couldn't see it because they didn't have prior knowledge.
Yeah, they didn't have prior knowledge of it.
I argued that they know what a canoe is.
It's just a giant canoe. Like,
you know, I mean, I see stuff all the time and go, what the heck is that? I've never seen it before. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I can perceive it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So I really feel like it has to, like, I don't think physical objects like that, like you can perceive it, but if it's like a supernatural thing, I think you either have to have some type of gift or something of that nature, or maybe we evolved away from it because of how much we are so.
I think it's more of the red car syndrome.
Mm.
Once you have something happen, you're looking for it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I've had some weird stuff happen, and I'm always on the look. Yeah, it's I can't help it. It's second nature now to always be checking the negative spaces. You know, the Dogman thing. My argument against that, as far as whether you're meant to see it or not, I'm arguing against it as a biological entity. That's my argument. And, as far as the interdimensional and all that stuff, we really, as a people, have to stop talking about dimensions as if they are supernatural. Dimensions are not supernatural. It's not a faith-based thing. Dimensions exist in physics. We can perceive all the way up to the third dimension because we exist in the third dimension. We can't perceive things that exist in the fourth and fifth and sixth dimension. Now, I would have to say that we can perceive things in, 2D and 1D if we look at it. So I'd almost have to say that something that exists in a further up dimension could perceive us. Maybe every now and again we get a glimpse. I don't know. But I really think we got to stop looking at dimensions as supernatural. I don't believe they're supernatural. I don't believe ghosts are supernatural.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Bigfoot evidence, right? We touched on that a little bit. Where are you guys on the Patterson-Gimlin film? Some of the bigger stuff that's out there. And we could even dip our toe in the Todd Standing. I haven't talked about him in a week or so. My people are getting their emails ready. They hate it when I talk about Todd. But where are you guys on the Patterson-Gimlin film and some of the other evidence that's out there? Is there anything that sticks out? Like, well, let's start with the PG film. I mean, do you think that's a real creature? And is there anything that sticks out about it one way or the other that has swayed you over the years?
I'll be honest with you. When I first saw the Patty film, it was years ago. And I was younger. And at first glance, I'm like, that's a dude in a suit. That was my first. It wasn't until the recent things where I started diving in and I'm like, wow, that suit is really advanced for that year. Like really advanced. And then it went further with like, wow, that suit has muscle movement in the legs. Hey, look, the toes on the suit actually grab the ground. That's weird. You know, it kind of just came in little steps for me where I'm like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that is real. You know, I mean, it's the reigning champion as far as evidence goes.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody has been able to take that one down. Yeah, I mean,
they don't even agree with each other about it. I mean,
even if they agree that it's really Patty's an actual Sasquatch, they still won't agree with each other on how to get to that conclusion. So it's like, yeah, she's the reigning queen.
Well, I mean, even Patterson and Gimlin don't agree with each other. Like at the end, they started arguing. One said it was a fake, and the other one says, "No, he's lying. It's real." You know, so it's, you know, I can't disprove it. I think it's fantastic. I love it. I hope it's real. I really do. I hope it's real because that would be amazing. But I don't know if it is. You know, I don't believe that I have the enough of the education to be able to dissect it enough to decide whether it's real or fake.
There's a lot of things that go on in that short clip that if you break it down, and you're law enforcement, so I know that you love, you know, probably dissecting patterns, and I'm sure you have a behavioral pattern list that's as long as my arm. But you know, like the gait, you know, the actual stepping gait. If you're a guy in a suit, especially a bigger guy, we're all bigger dudes. If you're a bigger guy and you're wearing a suit like that, you're not walking like that through the woods. I mean, I'd be tripping all the way through that if it was me.
Right.
You know,
let's face it, you'd look like the Jack's Lynx Sasquatch.
That would be me. Yeah.
You know, that's how you would walk and run and move. Like he says, the stride, the gait, everything about it is
when she turns her
different.
head.
Yeah.
When she turns her head while she's walking, the locomotion, the body, the spine, everything stays. Where if you look at a human being in a suit, and as they turn, it's not going to work that way. We've evolved to be very lazy in our locomotion. You know, we don't put tons of energy into movement because we don't have to.
Yeah.
So when we are walking through the woods, this is my walk through the woods, and we turn, we literally do this thing, and then we, you know, oh God, I'm tripping over things. Yeah, we can't do that. You know, but if you've got big old feely toes that are kind of keeping you way more stable, and they're, you know, a lot wider, I don't know, man. Patty's the reigning queen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I've talked to people like Meldrum I've had on the show, and when I had the conversation with Meldrum about it, it was sort of the epiphany for me because I've been on the fence, and I'm still to this day. There's days I watch it and I'm like, I don't know. It kind of looks like maybe it's Bob Hieronymus. And then the other days I'm like, no, I don't think that's really the way it could be. But like you said, I get into these conversations. There's fans of mine that are diehard Todd Standing fans. And anytime I say anything disparaging about Todd's videos and those things, you know, they come out of the woodwork and they're like, how do you know? Well, I can't prove that his stuff is fake. I can just give you my opinion. And it's like Doug Hychek says to me all the time, it's the 3-second rule, right? It's like you said, the first time I looked at the Patterson Gimlin film, I sort of had the opposite. I was like, no, that kind of looks real to me. And if you get that within the first couple of seconds of looking at something, and then of course, you know, as things progress and you get these 4K videos that people are doing and isolations and things where you can see things, whoa, like you couldn't see before, then it just sort of solidifies that. But I tell you, everything that I've ever seen that Todd Standing has put out that says this is a Bigfoot on film, I call bullshit because it just within the first 2 or 3 seconds, it just doesn't pass the smell test for me. And to his credit, he has never wavered in the fact that he claims this, to the point of literally like 3 days ago, I was getting calls from him to come up on an expedition in Canada to prove that what he's saying is real. And I'm like, dude, I don't doubt that I would probably come up there and find a footprint or have some sort of experience. I don't doubt that part of the story. That's not what I'm saying. And I really wanted to try to make it work, and I just couldn't make it work with my schedule. So I'm hoping I'll get to do it sometime in the future. So Todd, if you're listening, Kyle, if you're listening, I will come on an expedition, just not today.
You know,
but that said, I don't doubt. What'd you say?
I've talked a lot of crap about Todd with a disclaimer, I think that if he has ever faked anything, it's because he's trying to he wants to show you what happened to him, whatever he saw. I'm not going to sit here and say whether he did or not, but I'm saying the dude's been doing it for a long time. If most people lose interest if they're hoaxing, he's either onto something or a psychopath. I don't know. I'm just saying the dude's really, really passionate.
And I tend to agree because I stumbled across it the other day. There was some guy sent me an angry email, and I went over to his YouTube page, and he's got some of his video as audio from my show. When I have an opener where I've taken some of the audio from Todd on my show, saying that if he faked it for species recognition, right? He said that on my show. Now, in context, to be fair, he didn't say I faked the videos and this is why. He said he was having a conversation with somebody who said, if you faked this, you did it for species recognition. So Todd never said that he did that, right? So let's be intellectually honest and be clear on the record. I'm not saying that he ever said that he faked it for any reason. But this guy he's clearly a lunatic. If you watch the video, I'm not going to say the YouTube channel. I don't want to put it out there for people to go watch, but this guy's raking me over the coals because he's saying that I'm part of the problem and I'm not bringing truth to the matter. And I'm just in it for the money and I'm doing all these shows and I'm not really spreading the truth that my platform allows me to have the ability to do, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, he's pirating my audio to use on his YouTube page. But I said all that to say, a lot of people point to that, right? They say if Todd did this, it is because he's trying to get him recognized. He's trying to get the species recognized. He's trying to do it for the right reasons. And I've said that so many times. I don't believe the videos are real, but I do believe he's had real experiences and probably continues to have them. And I hope they have some on this expedition that I didn't get to go on this month. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make the videos real. And it's the same thing with the Patterson-Gimlin film. People talk shit about Roger Patterson and his past and what he did, and he was this and he was that, and he lied to people. It's about those 60 seconds of film that you have to really pinpoint down. And that's all. If you take all the other crap away from Todd, you have to judge what's on those videos. And if you look at the videos, they just don't look real to me. I'd be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I want his videos to be real. I've said that so many times. I would love for them to be real.
Yeah.
I just don't think they are.
I'm right there with you on that. I think
Feel the silence, damn it. You're a podcaster. I'll edit that out.
He's very passionate for sure. And I'm definitely guilty of talking quite a lot of crap about him. An embarrassing amount now that we're bringing it up, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, it's like the dude's been at it for that long. I don't know. You know, I just feel like if I was ever in the opportunity to go on an expedition with Todd Standing, I'd probably catch myself studying him more than actually looking for Sasquatch. I'd be like probably just honed in on his body language the entire time and watching his eyes dilate when he tells me stories and et cetera, so forth. You know the tricks. Yeah,
I would probably be right there with you. And, you know, like I said, I hope I get to do it. I was really looking forward to hopefully doing it this month. It just didn't work out. But, you know, hopefully it's a standing invitation. He's a really good dude. No matter what you say about the guy, he's a good dude. Kyle's a great kid, the one who does the Discovering Bigfoot podcast. He's a great guy. And they really are doing things for the right reason for the most part, I think. I just don't agree with faking anything, right? I don't think that does anybody anything. It certainly doesn't do any service for the researchers, the people that are boots on the ground trying to get things done. And I think it just sets us back every time somebody fakes a footprint or a video or a picture or whatever the case may be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a plethora of Facebook pages out there that are just spewing garbage. I sent one to our private chat between each other I saw the other day, and I'm not going to name the page, but, you know, it was very obviously a human footprint, unless the Sasquatch grew up wearing shoes. You know, like, have you ever seen pictures of people that didn't wear shoes growing up? their toes are splayed. This was obviously, I wore a narrow shoe when I should be wearing a wide for 15, 20, 30 years and then stepped in the mud with my shoe on. You know, the toes are like curled under each other, you know, like, come on, man. You got to, if you're going to fake it, at least put some effort in, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be 5'8" and 115 pounds and stomp in the mud, you know?
And it's like that one picture that I think we saw. It was, what was it like? It was that one that looked so fake, but it was like in so many. It was in Missouri, then Kentucky. It was the same picture.
Meth Squatch.
Yeah. The meth Squatch.
Yeah.
It's a super thin Sasquatch that's next to a lake in every state. And they get a picture of this, and it looks like the same picture, but it's in different states.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think that's half as bad, though. I mean, there's definitely worse out there. You know,
I definitely agree. So ultimately, where are each of you guys on the Bigfoot thing? Right? Do you think these things are real creatures? Do you think they're most of the people that are seeing what they say they see are actually seeing a Sasquatch? Where do you think they, I've had people on the show, Peter Byrne on the show, and said he didn't think there was anything like west of the Rockies or east of the Rockies. So what do you guys think these things are? Where are they coming from? Do you think they're real? Where are you individually on the subject?
I'll be honest with you. When I first started looking into this, I was way on the I don't believe in Sasquatch at all. And I stumbled onto the BFRO, and I started looking through, because I'm like, oh, there's so many. So I was like, okay, we're in Kentucky. I'm just going to look in Kentucky. I started looking through, and I just literally went down every single encounter and just read every single one. And one night, me and him got on there, and we only kept the ones that displayed a certain behavior pattern. And we're still working it out, the details of that, but there's a specific pattern. And unfortunately, like, I don't want this to come off like I'm, saying bad things about BFRO or anything, but 95% of those sightings didn't fit this certain pattern. Whatever made this pattern does it every year for the last 20 or so years, and the pattern repeats. So it's either something living, or it's a hoaxer who's just super dedicated to the point where he's willing to spend 20 years doing it in hopes that some random guy in Kentucky is going to pick up this minute detail. I think if I have to draw a line in the sand, it seems like that's what you want from me. You want a line in the sand here. I think that there's something there. There's something. I just can't get on board with there's 10,000 of them and there's a breeding population and that they ride around on spaceships. I'm saying that there's something, and at some point you have to take the history. This is not something that's new. This is something that's as old as the country itself, and beyond that, indigenous people, they don't even look at it like it's not a cryptid to them. My grandmother was a Kiowa Apache Indian. It's not a cryptid to them. It's just, that's a tribe. That's just a tribe. It's not this, oh my God, Bigfoot. They don't care. They're like, yeah, wow, you're interested in that, huh? Yeah, we knew about that. So their stories talk about it throughout all this time and whatever. I start looking through these certain behaviors about certain things it does. There's a lot of stories out there that don't fit this too. There's behavioral things. Some of the aggressive stories that I've heard are a little bit weird to me. 95% of what I've been looking at that spans multiple decades are not aggressive encounters at all. It's passing through. It's more like you just happened to caught me out. I don't think they see too good when the light's transitioning from from sundown to sunup. That little weird, what do you call it? What's the right word? Twilight. And the failing light, or whatever you want to call it. That weird light change that happens. I don't think their eyes are so good for that. I think they're nocturnal. I really do. But I just don't think there's that many of them.
Is he the spokesperson for you guys too? Is that where you guys are at, Josh and Tyler?
I feel like we're on the same page. I feel like I don't, how to put it. I will say this: if I believe in that, it's a flesh and blood creature.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's a supernatural. I've heard portals, that it could go through portals and do this. I can't get on board with that. It's just it's never been in my, like, I just can't just go around that. But a primitive primate, I could get around that. We've always said that there's blueprints that's been through time. And I think we've said it before. This is the first time that we're considered walking alone as
this era would be the first time a single hominid has walked by itself.
Yeah.
That seems odd. Nobody points that out.
So yeah, I feel like that would be my, that's where I would stand on it. I do believe people are seeing something, but I don't know if it could be that relic hominid, or I know Josh has said, what is it, a royal, or how we said, a royal human,
feral
human.
Feral human. That's it. Yeah, because if you take a look at stories from back in the 60s and 70s, the pot farmers in the Pacific Northwest, they were growing at such volumes that if they left for any reason, they could get wiped out. And, you spend a season prepping, growing, ready to harvest, somebody wipes you out, you're going hungry, and there's lots and lots and lots of stories of these guys that are up in these mountains that have been there, and in 2-3 months of being alone in the mountains with no other humans to speak to, they stop using the English language. They stop vocalizing. Like, they don't even talk to themselves anymore. It's grunts and things, So imagine a population, if you would, of feral humans that, were wearing animal skins. Now you take that and that might explain some of your distant sightings, some of your rock throwing, I don't want you to know I'm here. I'll throw a rock at you, so you go that way so I can go this way. That explains some of that. I don't know. If Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, is real, it's flesh and blood. It's going to be of this world. I want it to be real, but for the most part, I think a lot of the stories are just hand-me-downs from a time when, like, say, Meganthropus existed alongside humans, which was an 8-foot to 9-foot tall, hairy bipedal creature. So maybe some of these stories have just kept going. We have that still to this day with lots of things, where the old stories just keep coming through. But I don't know, I haven't seen one, I've seen picture evidence of footprints and things from close friends, and,
Do you think somewhere in history, somewhere back in ancient history and prehistoric time, at some point, either a human, a Homo sapien, or a relative saw a Gigantopithecus? So we know someone's seen one for sure. Someone saw Bigfoot at some point. We just don't know.
Or Meganthropus.
Meganthropus.
Yeah.
And if they saw Dinopithecus, they probably didn't live to.
They're very mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Kentucky X-Files, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the show, how it got started, and what people can expect when they tune in and listen to you guys.
Oh, it's a mess. It's just a mess. It's a little show where, we have no, like, you're the real deal. You're the big hitter, right?
Right.
We are the polar opposite of you.
It's like herding cats.
Yes. Yeah. We get on and we talk about weird stuff. we kind of like have this campfire feel, you know, like, hey, just jump in with us. We don't care what you want to tell us. We'll listen. We want to hear it.
Yeah.
We've heard some wild stuff, you know, from Bigfoot stuff to UFO stuff. Michael's story. Oh, I thought that was an incredible story.
Yeah.
This man, you know, he had like paranormal things that happened to him, UFO sightings, like up close, you know, lost time. He had a face-to-face encounter with aliens, you know, and like that's what we're into. We want to hear it. We want to, you know, if you want to sit down at our like campfire and talk to us about it, get on in here. You know,
Yeah.
we don't really.
And if you're listening to, you know, Kentucky X-Files, if we don't have a phone-in guest, if you don't like what we're talking about in the first 5 minutes, give it a second. Because we're probably going to talk about something else, and then something else, and then something else. There's no script. It's three buddies that, you know, sit in the garage and, you know, let the crickets chirp in the background while we talk about anything and everything.
I think we've had a couple like fans say like, hey, can I just send you a notebook so you can write down some ideas so you guys can stay on track?
Yeah.
It would help probably.
It would help.
But that's the whole idea is yeah, we didn't do this because we wanted to jump into the, you know, the big cryptid, the heavy hitters like you guys, you know, and all that. We jumped in because we're just a few guys that like talking about the unknown, asking cosmic questions, you know.
Yeah.
We want to know how stuff works. We want to know why people see the stuff they see. We want to know why, you know, why is it that there's a, you know, the triangle, what is it? The triangle UFO that's seen all over Kentucky. Why do people lose time? I think we figured that out. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. We think, we
feel pretty confident.
Yeah. Our drummer actually experienced the Black Triangle, and on his episode we started talking about how we think that people lose time.
Yes.
Well, you can't leave us hanging, man. You got to tell us how you lose time.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to tell you this.
Right.
So everybody says the same thing whenever this thing is close, right? It's this triangle, lights, big red light in the middle, right? And it's huge. It's gigantic. If you heard about this thing, I mean, is this something that?
When you're talking about this triangle, I've not heard about the Kentucky one, but I actually have Dr. Kitai that's coming on that was one of the main witnesses of the one out in Las Vegas back in the 90s. She's coming on at the end of the month, and it's very similar. I'm nodding because it's very similar to what you're describing.
Right on. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is silent. It's absolutely silent, and it's flying all over the place. People are sitting there looking at it, and they lose time. Well, long time ago, there was this guy that came up with this theory of relativity, right? You've probably heard of him, right? So he comes up with this theory that time and space are relative, and well, what did we learn as we went on? That gravity is essentially, you know, you have to have gravity if you want time, right? So if something can disrupt gravity, then you're going to lose time if you happen to be caught in the beam of it, right? Well, another, you know, what do we get in some of these encounters, right? The ship was over my house. I couldn't move. Well, why is that? Perhaps you've been subjected to a bit more gravity than you're used to.
Yeah.
So you're losing time and you can't move.
Yeah.
They don't, if it wants to do something to you, it doesn't have to do anything. There's no special magic beam. Just use its engine.
Yeah.
Because wherever the thing's flying, it's going to disrupt time in a bubble around it. You crank the throttle, more time gets disrupted.
Our theory is that the engine that's in the ship can actually control and create singularity events, which would be like a small controllable black hole, which explains the being able to travel distances that are ridiculous. And if it can create a singularity event, if it has enough power to create its own black hole, that it absolutely could disrupt gravity, time, and be silent because it's going to be moving faster than what's audible.
And being able to manipulate time and space means that you don't have to come from across the galaxy.
Yep.
You know, a little trip into some reading with Augustus Ferdinand Mobius, and you know that the closest point between A and B is the Mobius strip. Fold time and space and just hop on over. And that would take a being that operates on a higher dimension.
Very interesting theories, guys. So where can people find the show? How can they get you, and how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, we're all over the place. We're on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Apple Podcast.
you can throw a rock out there and find us at this point, I think.
We're on Facebook.
Yeah, we got a Facebook.
We got a Patreon.
Yeah.
One guest.
We got one Patreon.
Oh,
Yeah.
shout out to Travis.
Yeah.
Keeping the scene alive.
Shout out to Travis. Good man. Well, I will link to all that stuff in the show notes. You guys can find them over there. You guys go check out Kentucky X-Files. Josh, Tyler, Denny, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. And I've had a blast talking to you guys. I may have to be a phone-in guest on the show. I'm going to call you.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I just hope you're ready to waste an entire hour of your
Yes.
life. You're never going to get back.
I just might do that. I appreciate it, guys.
Get off the phone with us and you feel dumber, it's totally our fault.
Yes.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, if we say something stupid, it's because we are.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's like the perfect ending. That's going to be perfect.
Yeah.